Okay, so I believe everyone can see me right now. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Jeslin. Today I'm going to talk about the secret to creating a healthy workplace and how do you improve the employee wellness. Okay, so I believe, now probably it has been like, 2 years for most people, working from home. We actually face different challenges depending on which stage of life you are at and, where are you working at, stuff like that. So there are many factors that actually comes in play. But one thing for sure is, during this period of time or even, for the future, employee wellness is actually a very important thing because that will affect, productivity, affect, how the company actually perform. Okay, so before I actually move on, let me give an introduction about myself. Okay, so I'm Jeslin, managing partner of Blackstorm Consulting. So I actually started, my, I would say, career actually in the HR space. So I actually studied human resource management with psychology in Singapore Poly. So that's where I actually first get to, know about, human resource management. Okay, so that's where I actually intern and also work for a while in the MNC for around 10 months. Okay, so that's where I also got to know like in whatever I study in school versus what actually happening in the workplace. There's actually quite a very big difference. Okay, so I also do know that different kind of like company size, company culture can actually play a role in how employer or even HR personnel manage the employee wellness aspect in the business. So that's where I actually decided, okay, maybe HR alone is not something that I actually want to do. Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to actually set up my own business. So I actually went into studying, business admin to be more generic, to know, at least, the all-rounded aspect of setting up a business, accounting, stuff like that. So, because I know that I want to be an entrepreneur, right? So actually I chanced upon like, a job post, a boutique consultancy firm. So that's where I actually decided to venture into a consultancy firm. So why do I did that is also because like, I know that in a consultancy firm, I actually get to learn a lot of like, mistake, done by others, or things that they actually do very well. So, having this kind of information can actually help me to be a better entrepreneur eventually. Okay. So I actually converted to be a full-time employee at that company. And then after graduation, became a mom, and then we actually spun off this company called Blackstorm Consulting. Okay, so also last year I actually launched a brand called Shine Apart. Basically, we sell like colorful clothes, bright color blazer, stuff like that. Because I truly believe that that actually affect how you actually it actually helps a lot in the doing business networking or even in the entrepreneurship, because that is how people can actually recognize you to dress something differently. So that's my personal belief. But we do understand that different people will have different style in terms of fashion. Okay, so recently we actually launched this global strategic partners. It's more of like supplying tech talent, where because we know that during this where cross-border traveling is actually pretty hard, we probably need to hire quite a lot of like remote worker. Okay, so we actually specialize in like providing remote tech talent, but at the same time ensuring the quality is good by having people monitoring them in the local market. Okay, so I actually also mentor to quite a couple of like accelerator, IPS, the university affiliated one, High-Spin will be the sports accelerator, MYP will be the school accelerator, the school program, as well as Techstar, which I think most people will actually know that. Okay, so feel free to connect with me, during after this whole discussion. Yeah. Okay, so Blackstorm Consulting, what do we do? Actually, skiller. We actually scale businesses in Southeast Asia, mainly on a few aspects: people, product, and processes. Okay, so today we are mainly talking more about the people side. Yeah. So we always believe that giving access to our clients also, because that actually help them for the first step to actually enter a new market. So market entry is something that we actually do quite often. We actually help companies to prepare themselves before they actually land over here in Southeast Asia. Usually land in Singapore and then expand in other parts of Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Thailand, are also places that we actually have offices, Taiwan, stuff like that. Okay, so before I move into, what are the few ways that you can actually talk about, can actually help the employee wellness, let's talk about what are the symptoms of mental health, to begin with. Okay, so mental health is actually pretty common right now. It's not about, people having mental health issue. Yeah, so most people will probably have mental health issue at any point of their time or of their life. It's a matter of whether do you actually address that this is a mental health trouble that you actually need to solve. Okay, so as an entrepreneur as well as the the employer, it's something that we actually would pretty have to be sensitive in a way that identifying what are the few symptoms, to actually know that someone is actually having mental health troubles. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms that you can actually use as a guide. Things like if you actually see that a particular employee is actually is not performing like their usual self. Okay, probably late for work, absent for work, or you feel that very sleepy. So that's a period of time that you probably want to actually pay a little bit more attention to find out what is the issue happening. Okay, so you can actually provide certain support during this period of time, and especially during work from home. So this is very important because when you're working from home, you don't really interact a lot with your employee. Okay, so you also don't interact a lot with your colleagues, stuff like that. So it's very important that even when you're working from home, good to have some pocket of time, having some meetings in between with your colleague to have some social interaction. Okay, so one of the few ways that you can actually observe is like decrease in productivity. Okay, but the thing about this is we also need to realize that mental health trouble may not be always due to work. Okay, for the employer point of view, why is it important to actually realize this is it's not a matter of like you see one person is actually not performing well, or is showing some mental health symptoms, and then because of that you actually decided to implement something in a company wide due to that situation. So it's also good to actually talk to that particular employee to find out what exactly is happening, because sometimes it could be a personal issue that is actually affecting them. Okay, so other symptoms will be like if you see that there's a drastic change in the working behavior, people who actually feel a lot more anxiety during the workplace, speaking a lot faster in the meeting, okay, trying to rush out a lot of things. So that are some of the symptoms that you can actually determine that there might be some issue happening with the particular employee, and then pay some attention to it. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, it's actually very common to have mental health trouble. Okay, so as you can see this survey over here, this result, 76% of the respondents actually reported at least one symptoms. Okay, so a good news about this is people are identifying that they really have some mental health condition that they should actually pay attention to. So I think that is something that is quite positive for people to actually realize that, because a lot of time when we talk about mental health problem, most people are pretty defensive. Okay, so when we are the employer, or when we are HR personnel dealing with this issue, we have to be very tactful in terms of like addressing this also. Okay, so definitely during this period of time, past year meaning in 2020, during this period of time, definitely mental health is something that we should pay attention to. Okay, and when we talk about millennials and Gen Z, okay, so apparently millennials and Gen Z are actually the most affected by this whole situation. Okay, they are more open in terms of like acknowledging that they have mental health reason, and then they actually left the role because of that, in this year. Okay, as compared to in 2019, as you can see, the percentage jump is actually pretty high. Okay, so this is not something that is not a surprise. Okay, it's not surprising because as we can know that the newer generation they are more connected in certain way. The way they work is different. Working from home is something that they like. Okay, but at the same time, they also like a lot of interaction. Okay, so pay attention to this details. So especially where you have your company, actually you have a lot of like millennials or Gen Z, and then this information will be also good to actually manage some generation gap within the firm itself. Okay, so another facts, take a look on the very right. Singapore is actually the highest rating to be rated as the most stressful living place. Okay, as compared to Vietnam. Okay, so just pay attention to this. Is like when you are dealing with like partners or even employees who are from other countries overseas, don't treat everything employee wellness definition the same. Okay, so the definition of and also the causes that cause them this mental health issue can vary a lot due to many factors. Okay, so take that into account. And so and also individually we know that actually everybody face different trouble. Okay, so since these are some of the common issue, okay, that actually cause such trouble. Okay, so number one, workaholism. Okay, so some of the common ways that actually cause this is probably like there's no boundary. Okay, especially when we are working from home. All of us, we are actually we actually communicated online a lot more than the past. In the past we can actually draw a boundary that I travel to work, and just work from the office, and then when I reach home I will just have my work-life balance. I'll just do anything that I'm not other than working. So now where work from home is so common, okay, so the line has been blurred. Okay, so we actually work longer than usual. So as an employer, or even people, the leader who actually set the culture within the firm, it's very important to actually balance this workaholism culture. Okay, it's good to have workaholism culture in some aspect, especially when you are running startup. Startup is actually you have to run very fast because whatever you are dealing with, right, trends can be catching up, competitors may be coming in, stuff like that. So workaholism is actually very common. So when you are actually identifying the talent to be hired at the first place, ensure that the culture of the person, the value of the person is actually not too far apart from whatever culture that you have. Okay, so that will actually help you easier to actually avoid this situation. Okay, but definitely workaholism culture is one of the causes to mental health troubles. Okay, so emotionally draining from work from home. Yeah, so we need to understand that actually at different work your life, actually you have different challenges. Like for example, myself, I have a kid at home, but because I have someone to take care of the kids, or the kids will be in school, so I may not feel so drained from it as compared to maybe someone else, maybe a colleague who have kids at home, and whenever they are working from home, you can actually see kids running around. So this is something that we may need to understand and be more understanding, but at the same time also be professional about that. Okay, so even though work from home is actually default, I mean, if possible, maybe you can give some allowance to the employee, if they actually want to work in a cafe or work in a co-working space. If office is not, you can't actually allow them to work in office. So yeah, so take note of that. Different people, they have different challenges. Okay, so this can actually be a reason causing them to be feeling bad during this period of time. Poor communication among colleagues. Okay, so this is pretty common right now, and it can actually happen every day. Okay, probably now people actually got used to it. We know that communicating online versus communicating in the office face to face is definitely different. Okay, so poor communication, we can see that, a lot of times it actually causes a lot of problem for that. And, just take note of that and then, manage that too. Okay. And lastly, social isolation. So it's very important to identify, the different dynamic and also personality of team members, because it may affect the person differently. Okay. So social isolation, definitely as an extrovert, you may feel quite uneasy if you're actually working alone. But of course, it has to be taken into account. But also we need to know that during this period of time, just job security is actually quite important for some people. So taking some measures, also being careful in certain way of communication is very important. Okay, let me address it in the next few slides, how you can actually deal with this. Okay, before I go into some of the measures that you can actually use in the workplace to actually deal with that, let's think about how do you de-stress. Okay, you can share with us in the chat box. But these are the few areas that you can actually use as a guideline, even for your personal use. Okay, it may not be just applicable in the workplace, but personally, if you are stressed, usually these are the few areas that you can actually de-stress. Okay, think about the 5 senses that you have. The smell, sight, taste, touch, and hearing. Okay, so some of the few ways that you can actually apply in the workplace could be like adding more greeneries in the workplace. Okay, having more natural lights. Providing a more variety in the pantries. Giving the employees not being too particular of them snacking in the office, stuff like that. So these are the few ways you can actually help people to de-stress. Yeah. So you can use this as a guideline when it comes to like preparing for bonding session, or even encouraging staff to actually take some break to do things like that. Okay. Okay. So as an employer or HR personnel or HR department, how are you going to actually implement some methods to ensure that employee actually manage their mental health well? Okay, so these are the few common ways, but of course these are not a one size fit all solution. Okay, so you may actually can consider depending on the dynamic and the structure of your company and also the operational needs. Yeah. So number 1, 4-day work week. Okay. Okay. So the key thing about 4-day work week is not about doing lesser work. Okay. The key thing about 4-day work week is about providing the facility of letting your employers to compress all the work that's supposed to do within the 4 days. Okay, so that they can have the extra day to actually rest. Okay, so it's also important that if you actually want to implement this particular measure, understand that different people will have different working style. Okay, not everyone want to compress everything within the 4 days, and then if we implement this like company wide, without taking into account that, or even force them to actually take the 4-day work week, right? It may cause stress in some people. Okay, so because some people actually prefer it to be spread out in terms of the workload. So take that into account, having this as an option, but not enforcing it. Okay, so still allowing them, employee the option to actually work 5 days if they need, but the key thing is about increasing the productivity, okay, and also having the same output. Okay, so second, mental health days. Mental health days usually implement on the ad hoc basis. Okay, why do I say so? Is because it could be things like, okay, you are rushing for projects. The company or the departments are rushing for projects. After the whole project, just give a few days off. Let the whole department have a few days off to treat it as a mental health day, and then just give them that leave. Okay, so this can be a way that you can actually use this particular measure. Okay, thirdly, it's important to actually ensure that the managers, okay, know how to actually recognize mental health needs, okay, and able to support the employees. Okay, so yeah, This actually, because as a owner itself, let's say if you have so many people within the company, you may not be able to address everyone's need. Okay, and you shouldn't address everyone's need. Okay, so train your manager, give them some guideline, okay, and how they can actually support, their subordinate to ensure that, everybody is actually performing, well and, normally or given the right support to do that. Okay. Okay, number four is something that I want to emphasize on. Why is that so? Is because it may looks like, it's actually something that it shouldn't happen during this period of time. Everybody is working from home. Everybody is working very well. Everybody is like overworking. Why would you want to send like staff for training? Why would you want to give them opportunity to be trained up, take up courses, stuff like that? Okay, so this is actually a period of time that is good, that you actually can provide, support for personal development. So depending on how we actually communicate it to our employees, okay? Because this is a period of time that a lot of technologies are catching up, okay? Not everyone is actually equipped with what they, what the world actually needed it to be, okay? So give them opportunity, give them, set some budget aside. If employee or your talent will actually want to actually upskill themselves, provide them the support, give them some time to actually do that. So that can be, you'll be very surprised that, your staff may actually be very thankful for that. Okay, and know that you actually care for them, know that their jobs are actually quite secure because you actually want them to actually improve themselves to take up a bigger role. Okay, so at this point of time, the way that we actually do performance management appraisal have to be sort of adjusted, okay, from my point of view. Why is that so? Is because in the past we work from office, we actually probably interact with each other very well. We can actually say if you are a salesperson now, you can actually meet your client anytime. Okay, so this is a period of time that we need to be very mindful that the way that we actually are working is different. Okay, although you can actually give some leeway, business is still business. You still need some metrics to actually help you, to make sure that you actually are earning money, right? So change the way that the performance management have been being done. Okay, look at the metrics. Does it make sense at this point of time? Okay, what are the few things that you should adjust, and what are the few ways that you can actually help this employee to actually tap on their maximum potential? Okay, yeah. So also very important to have open communication, because a lot of times, we know that economy is not doing well. Okay, so people will spread rumors. So when rumors are being spread, okay, so it's important that you address it openly, transparent, giving some updates about the company, and then, not keeping too quiet about that. Okay, because trust is everything, during this period of time. Okay, not just during this period of time. Actually, trust is actually very important to actually, giving the employee the support as well as, the confidence that, they are actually doing well. Okay, so having an open door policy, giving them channels to actually communicate with the right person, very, very important. Okay, so number 6. Okay, so this is something that will happen, in almost all companies. Okay, it can happen unknowingly, especially, like I mentioned earlier, isolation, anxiety, stuff like that can actually change the way a person act. Okay, so sometimes we cannot treat it as, this is the personality of the person, and because of this, we will avoid this person forever. Okay, so we have to be very understanding also in a way that, when we are working from home, we have our different challenges, stuff like that. But at the same time, we shouldn't also support abusive behavior. Okay, whenever there's abusive behavior or bullying happen, virtually or even in the workplace, address it. Okay, address it, because that can be a cause of a lot of issue, not just mental wellness issue, performance issue. It can be an issue that you may realize maybe a few years later. Okay, and at that point of time, maybe there's a root cause and you can't really change that much and become a culture within the company. Okay, so address that, and also make it openly, that let everyone know that this is something that is not accepted, within the workplace. Okay, so yeah, I will go through number 8. Basically, in the past slide, you actually see that, these are the few ways that you can actually, self-cope. Okay, so the question is, should work from home stay after pandemic? Okay, you take a look at this chart over here. Actually, most people will actually prefer to work from home, apparently. Okay, but versus, they can really work from home. Okay, the green one will be they want to work from home, and the blue one is they actually work remotely, which is work from home or somewhere else. Okay, so with this huge gap, okay, so as an employer or as a HR personnel, you may want to don't think about it now, okay, and set the kind of culture and expectation. Okay, things like, let's say, if you can actually gather everyone back for 1 or 2 days, not completely work from office, change drastically if there's no point to, because if performance and productivity can actually increase from working from home or working remotely, we should actually accept it. Okay, but there are certain time, especially where there are discussion or meetings that have to be done outside, work from home will stay after pandemic, but work from home shouldn't be compulsory, and it shouldn't be, the expectation of everyone. Okay, so start training and communicate the culture that you actually want to achieve, after pandemic, or even after when the pandemic is settled down. Start communicating it. Don't do it only at the point of time where there's a need to. Okay, so be prepared about that. Do it earlier. So communicate well. That will be very important. Yeah. Okay. So you'll be talking about few methods to have like mental health wellness, to manage it. But if you were to actually budget for a mental health wellness program, how can you actually budget it, and whether this will actually benefit? The benefit will actually outweigh the cost. Okay, so there are a few ways that you can do so. Firstly, also estimate the cost of impact due to the poor mental health wellness, because that is actually the benefit that you will actually reap from having this kind of program. Okay, so loss of productivity, loss of performance, loss of talent, the cost of actually rehiring a talent, retrain a talent, all this should be calculated, put some numbers or metrics to it. Okay, so that's number 1, estimate the cost of impact. And this is actually your benefits. So number 2, estimate the duration that the intervention will actually offer positive effect. Okay, not all intervention actually give you positive effect immediately. Okay, so find out how long do you think that this, like for example, having a fitness program can actually, help to actually create that effect. Having a fitness program probably will not be helpful if you were to do it like a month. Okay, because maybe everybody at that point of time is still not used to exercising. Okay, so let's say if you do it in a period of time like 3 months, okay, and there's a period of time where people actually realize that exercising actually help them to actually manage their mental wellness. So that can be a period of time that you can use it, okay, to actually calculate in. You need minimally 3 months in order to create this positive effect. Okay, so number 3, survey your employees to assess the engagement level of the program. Okay, so also very important to know how many people will actually use this program. Okay, how much time they will spend in this program. Will they ultimately take out this program? Also remember to give some buffer time, because sometimes having mental wellness program can actually cause some stress to some people. especially let's use an example of fitness. Not everybody is as athletic as everyone and not everybody is as athletic. So applying this compulsory fitness exercise for everyone may actually cause some stress to some people, and then not everybody may actually take up that. Okay, so find out how much percentage of employee will actually continue this program if you were to have that and you were to invest and commit to that. Okay, lastly, compare against the cost of this program. Okay, so number one, you actually have the benefit. Number four, you have the cost. Okay, and of course, taking into account 2 and 3, that's where you can actually determine that how much should you spend for this program and whether you should have the program or not. Okay, so I hope this whole step 1, 2, 3, 4 it will be very helpful for you to decide what should you do to sort of tackle this mental health issue. Okay, so lastly, before I actually open the floor for discussion, one thing I want to emphasize is, I think I actually addressed a few times that individual people are actually different. Okay, so we have like personality, the way we work, the role that we play, all these are different. Okay, so it's very important to also understand or actually also get the employee themselves, a talent themselves, to understand themselves. Okay, so there are actually a lot of personality tests that you can actually do, but I want to address these are the few roles that a person will play. Okay, so by understanding that, you will know that what kind of strength they have and what are the weaknesses they have, and then giving them the different kind of support. Okay, so shaper. Okay, so shaper, they are pretty driven. Okay, these are the people that you actually, if you give them different challenges, asking them to actually take up courses to improvise whatever skill they have, they will be very appreciative. Okay, as compared to let's say if they are team worker, which we will cover later. Okay, because what they are actually want to is they are very competitive. Okay, they like new information, but at the same time, these are the people that can be pretty insensitive. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, they may actually sometimes cross the line and then created some bullying action or created some behavior that may actually stem within the organization. Okay, so so if you are the employer or if you are the manager of this particular person, okay, talk to them more. Okay, understand their thoughts, giving them some room to actually contribute will be very important. And and letting them know that you actually appreciate them, and then giving them opportunity to take up more roles will actually help them to manage themselves. Okay, so these are one of the example. I won't go through all, but you take a look at the last one, completer finisher. Okay, completer finisher are the quality controller. Their strength is definitely being perfectionist. Okay, so when someone is actually perfectionist, they will be very particular in whatever work they have. Okay, and they may get very frustrated if things are not structured well. Okay, so usually for this kind of person, I'll advise give them some, encourage them to have some break, go out for a walk, take a day off. That will be very helpful for these people as compared to number one shaper. Because number one shaper, let's say if you give them leave, ask them to go out for a rest, they may take it wrongly as compared to the last one. Okay, so these are some examples that you can actually use to cross over and understanding different individual. Yeah, people-oriented role. Okay, these are people that actually like to mingle with other people. Coordinator. Coordinate among the team. They actually pretty much like to work with other people, like to distribute work, like to be the one to actually allocate different work. Okay, so team member will be people who actually are more cheerful. They but they are good listener. They actually listen to you, but at the same time, they actually can be, very indecisive. Okay, so it can actually get on some nerve of some people within the team itself. Yep. So, okay. So last category, they are the innovator. Okay, plant. They are the innovator. They can be very imaginative. Okay, but sometimes they may be hard. They are not very good in communicating with other people. Okay, so for this kind of people, they are most of the time they are actually quite introvert. Okay, so say if you have a bonding session, okay, go to involve them. Okay, but also be clear that sometimes being too forceful in certain activities may actually have some adverse effect for these people. Okay, so I'll go through a rest, but you can actually download the deck to learn more about this few individual, and it actually can help you to actually manage the whole team and then provide them the right support to actually manage their mental health. Okay, so if you want to find out more about building startup team or even those few roles they actually talk about, you can check out the course online. You can just scan the QR code, go to the course and then learn more for that. Okay, so Rebecca will share more. We are actually giving like 1 month free access to actually unlock that in the chat group. Okay, so that's all for today. I actually open the floor for discussion. Feel free to ask any question in the chat box.
Okay, thank you for your sharing, Jeslin. So now we are opening to the floor for some, for some questions. So feel free to type away if you have any questions. All right. Okay, I'm just going to share the screen just in case anybody wants the presentation deck that Jeslin has shared just now. Okay, we have a couple of questions coming in. The very first one from Keith. Do you think it's healthy for employees to pour out all of their emotions at workplace?
Okay, thanks, Keith, for the question. I don't think it's actually very healthy to pour out all emotion. Okay, to be professional, you should actually manage your own emotion. Okay, within a small circle, within a small group of friends, maybe during informal session like lunch or dinner, you can pour out your emotion and let other people know that what are you feeling, stuff like that. But I don't think it's healthy that you actually pour it out completely, because that is actually most of the time that is the reason that actually cause a lot of conflict within a workplace. Okay, being open is actually quite different from being emotional in a workplace. So to answer that question, I don't think it's right to actually pour all emotion out in the workplace. If someone actually being too emotional or being too open in their emotion, okay, in the workplace, but it's not doing it professionally, I think this is something that you may want to address. Yeah, so it's not healthy to do that. I hope that answers your question. That's my point of view.
Okay. Okay, we have another question coming from Dylan. So how do you think we can show care for our fellow employees' mental health while still respecting their boundaries?
How do you think you can show care for? Okay, boundaries, I believe that being not too invasive when we ask question. I believe that is what you meant. Yes, I think first thing, not just like employee, even within friends, I believe, individual, you have your different level of comfort of sharing information. Okay, so not everyone will actually pour all information or emotion out to anyone, not just workplace, also to friends or even to like close, your spouse here and there. So I feel that we need to understand who are we dealing with first. Okay, so you need to identify like whether this person actually like to share a lot of their own thing. Okay, some people actually share a lot of their own thing. Every day you probably can hear stories about what is happening at home, what is happening to them. Some people are pretty open on that, but there are actually another group of people who are pretty, don't really share much about their, life outside of work. So that's where we know that, this person may not actually like to be asked invasive questions. Okay, it may create like, awkward situation if you actually ask too invasive question. So usually how it works is, for myself, I will test the water. Okay, if I really want to ask certain question that is too invasive, I do not know whether it's invasive, then I share my point of view first of my own thing. You see, say if you really want to find out, how many kids, how many family members you have within in the of a person. Okay, it may be it may be deemed too invasive or confidential for some people. So share about yourself first. If the person is willing to share, the person will actually talk to you about that. Okay, so same goes to like addressing mental health issue. There will be people who may feel offended if we say, you look very tired, you look very, not yourself, stuff like that. You may feel offended and they may feel upset about that. Okay, so I think it's important to check out on your fellow employee or your colleague, but also at the same time understanding what kind of person this person is. If this person just want to deal with issue themselves and do not want to be questioned for that, and then don't do that. Okay, just observe at the side and provide them the support and let them know that you're open to support if there's a need to.
Yeah, that's the thing about some people. They tend to think that it's not too confidential to them, but it may seem too invasive or confidential to certain people. So I like what you just answered, like start with yourself first, open up, and then see if the other person is comfortable to even reveal what you wanted to hear from them.
Yeah. So last time I was like, I was working in HR department. So it's very common that you have staff or your colleague actually will talk to you. They will share like, my wife is actually not doing well. My wife's sick. Yeah. So at this point of time, that, okay, then you can ask further question, how we can help you? What kind of support can we do? Do you need, leave? Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah. So these are the few signs you can actually use to see how much, how much support you can actually provide. Other than that, usually I won't go to the staff and ask, what's happening within your house, stuff like that. That's my thing.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, from John, do you think working overtime is healthy? If employees can't seem to finish their tasks on time, do you encourage them to submit on the next day or have them to work OT and complete it on the day itself?
Okay. I mean, I believe workload is always there. Okay, work is always there. But I wouldn't say that working overtime is healthy or not healthy. Okay. So it really depending on what you want. If a person is like, super motivated, self-motivated himself, it shouldn't be seen as a rule. Yeah. It shouldn't be seen as a rule. If you're very self-motivated and you want to achieve something, the employee will on their own, they will actually work overtime without you knowing or stuff like that. So I would say that work is always there. If the person we know that is very motivated and want that opportunity, we can give it to them. Okay, of course, I would say not too much time, and don't expect employee to always work OT. Yeah, but of course, during situation whereby you have actually projects to actually to rush out or you have a deadline, then yes, employee get our support to actually work OT for that period of time. But after that, or even during that period of time, provide some care or support, show some care or support, buy them some drinks, or even give them extra time off to thank them for doing that. I think that is actually very important, because most of the time employee got very unhappy is because they feel not appreciated. Okay. So yeah,
I do agree on that note, whereby should, in one way or another, even like small gestures, right, to show that we appreciate their contribution is very important. Otherwise, I think maybe it's not about working overtime sometimes, I feel, which I think the majority reason why employees leave is because they feel unappreciated which I got a lot of such complaints from my friends for this kind of situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends also, they're willing to work overtime. Apparently every day they actually work overtime. And they are very happy about it because they were given the opportunity to take up a bigger role. Yeah.
Yeah, I think different people will see this differently. Yeah. Okay. From Ethan, what do you think is the first step to resolving a heated argument in the office?
Okay. Okay, depending on which stand or which person you are at, let's say you are the boss of the company. Okay, when you see a heated argument in the office, it's very important not to take side. Yeah, without actually finding out what is happening. Okay, I think the first thing is you need to at least know what is happening first. Okay, and then you don't always need to take side, but you can be the one to actually put everything into effect and then get them to realize that this is a stupid argument. Yeah. So one of the few strategy that you can do is, of course, to cause confusion. Actually, that's how we actually deal with kids. When the kids cry, okay, or kids is like being too naughty or what can you do? One strategy is create confusion, confuse them. So when you confuse them, they will when you confuse them, they will start thinking this and that. You actually buy some time for them to actually calm down. So I feel this can be one of the tactics that you can use. But one thing very important is not to take side, because once you actually started taking side without knowing what's happening, it can create a lot of tension, and then the tension may actually create into people bear grudges for that. So I think important not to take side. And then another strategy that I like to do is to confuse them with whatever theory it is, and then at the same time let them realize that that was a stupid argument, and then sort it out professionally. Okay, so usually argument will happen where people get quite impulsive at that point of time. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you do not know what to do, just confuse them.
Confuse them.
Okay, from Sharon, any tips that you would give to entrepreneurs that overwork themselves and end up feeling completely drained and burnt out?
Okay, overwork themselves. I think as long as you are an entrepreneur, most of the time you probably are overworking. If you actually use like 8 hours a day as a benchmark, and then most of the time probably you don't have 8 hours, work only 8 hours a day. Okay, so yeah, so I think this one you probably just need to just suck it up for that. So how to actually not feeling drained out and burn out? Then give yourself some break, and then not too particular in yourself, because there will be always a time whereby okay, you are an entrepreneur, a full-time entrepreneur, and you actually go to office every day. Okay, I know that being late for work, even as a boss yourself, you will know that you're actually not giving the right setting the right example. Okay, I think there's something that we have to be not too particular about that. Even if you are late, a few minutes late is actually okay. Give yourself some break about that. Not hold your principle that strongly, because sometimes most of the time you feel drained out or feel burnt out, right? It's actually caused by yourself. You're not forgiving yourself or doing certain things. When you go out for shopping, go out for fun or whatsoever, you actually feel guilty of not working. So usually this is caused by internally. So one tip is to forgive yourself, give yourself some break. Okay, work is always there. Same for employee, same for entrepreneur. Work is always there. Just have to manage your time for that.
Okay, hope that answers your question, Sharon. So from Jojo, what do I do if I have to give my employee a bad performance review, but I can tell that he is dealing with personal problems and is stressed? How should I go about it?
Okay, I think professionally, you still should give your employee bad performance. Okay, a performance is a performance. You still have to be very objective about that. Okay, that's the purpose of performance review. But you can always leave some remark or let the person know that I understand that for this period of time, your performance is not so well, I actually give you that bad performance, but I hope you can actually do better and you can manage your issue well. Because personal problem, everybody will have their own personal problem. I mean, the business still have to run. You cannot, because of a personal problem, and then, just give them leeway, and that will actually cause some unfairness within the workplace itself. Okay, you can support them, personally. You can support them as a colleague, but if the employee performance is bad, continue to give this bad performance review, and then let them know that what is the reason, and we know that you can actually do better. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Jojo. That's my opinion for this.
Okay, we still have some time for one last question. So I'm just going to pick, from Yishun Home for 2 questions. So many of us are working much longer hours than norm while the employees need a break. We, the employer, need that too. Will a 4 days work day be more desirable in our Asian culture?
Okay, many of us work longer hours than norm. I would say, okay, 4-day work days, right? Like just now I mentioned earlier, the part about 4-day work day. You also have to be mindful that not because it's a 4-day work day thing, it should be imposed to everyone. Some people actually do not like things to be compressed. They may feel, high anxiety for being that. So if as an employee we know that we're actually okay to actually reduce the workload, okay, and not giving like unreasonable workload and then expect the person to work within 4 days, ultimately, right, even if it's a 4-day work week, okay, most people are not doing it. Most people are not practicing 4-day. That can backfire also, I would say. Yeah. So I think in the Asia culture, it's very hard to implement, I would say, because our culture, we actually are pretty much workaholic. We work very long hours, and then it actually can be quite difficult to implement. But giving an option, giving the flexibility would be good. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So for the rest, if you guys have any more questions, you can actually, connect with us. Okay, for anything related to events or webinars like this, you can always, add me on LinkedIn, and then we get connected from there. Anything related to HR or, mental health at the workplace, you can connect with Jeslin on her LinkedIn. Okay, my colleague Dylan will be dropping some links just in case you cannot scan any of the QR codes over here. You can just directly click on the link to get connected. And then last but not least, if you have not joined our, joining as one of our members on our platform Xperinia, we are giving new users free 1-month premium access where you get premium access to all our events and also content. Yeah.
Okay. I think there are few more questions. Let me address like Nicholas' question. How do you define like toxic? Many people throw big toxic word. So I think this toxic thing, it's very subjective. It's also very personal. Okay. I don't think you should actually promote a lot of like aggressive like behavior within the workplace, but of course also not too not too how to say, not too, you don't care about too many people opinion, okay, not too friendly in some way. So depending on what business you are in, right, like for example, if you talk about startup, if everybody is so they care about all opinion, everything have to be so democratic, and you need to vote for this and that can actually cause some problem lah. Okay, so it's important to identify toxic behavior, but also it's also very important not to be too protected within the company, because it can be very friendly within your own group, within your company, but you will be eaten out when you actually deal with like competitors, okay, in the market.
Yeah, if you want to understand more about how Jeslin deal with like toxic culture, right, I believe she may have some experience on that one, but so maybe you can join our Telegram group to communicate over there, because Jeslin will be inside, okay? And then she can answer more of your questions like such. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the end for today's event. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed the session. And if you missed out the earlier session, I noticed that some of them enter at a later stage. We do have replay as this session is recorded. So if you have not joined our platform or anything, feel free to sign up an account, because we will be sending out all the replay next week for this. And also you can watch all the replays that we had for previous sessions and events. All right. Thank you so much for attending today, guys, and also Jeslin for sharing.